In the space of just 5 weeks, Liverpool have been knocked out of the FA Cup by a team sat bottom of the Championship,
Shocking.
ushered aside by PSG in Europe and capitulated in the Cup final of the weekend. But why has this happened, Zach, and what exactly is going on at Liverpool right now?
Well, I think it's down to a multitude of reasons. It's not just one that you can pinpoint and go, that's the problem.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I want to delve into the fatigue midfield, and I think that's been a prevalent issue as of late.
Yeah.
Szoboszlai, McAllister and Gravenberch, that's his favoured midfield three. And understandably so, they're the 3 best midfielders in the team.
Yeah.
But what you've got to do is rotate them more effectively, rest them more efficiently, and then you won't encounter problems like we've seen as of late. Against PSG, they look fatigued. Against Southampton, they look fatigued. And against Newcastle, they look very fatigued. And it's just because Slot is overplaying them. Don't get me wrong, as a manager, you're going to have your preferred midfield.
Yeah, of course.
You've got to make sure they have sufficient rest to perform at that high level. And this is evident by the stats. And as you can see here, Gravenberch has started 40 of his 41 appearances.
Yeah.
McAllister started 35 of his 42. Szoboszlai 33 of his 40. This is a lot of football that they're playing.
Yeah.
And it's not even just that they're starting a lot of games, they often aren't coming off. Especially Gravenberch earlier on in the season. It felt like he played 90 every week.
Yeah.
And I think especially with him in particular, we're really starting to see him look leggy now later on in the season, because Slot's only just started to use Endo later on in games. He didn't do that earlier on in the campaign. And then McAllister and Szoboszlai as well. They played a whole lot of football, as you can see there, starting pretty much every game in pretty much every competition. And then you look at Jones, only 21 starts from 37 appearances.
Yeah.
And then you look at Elliott, 4 starts from 21. Endo, 6 from 26. This is just not enough. Yes, that's not your preferred midfield 3, but Elliott and Endo shouldn't be starting 10 games combined in a season when you play 15 matches.
Yeah, I
50
agree.
matches, yeah. It's just not feasible, and that's why I think the midfield is looking leggy at the moment, and especially Gravenberch and McAllister. That's so Szoboszlai, but that's just because I think that guy has got, like 8 lungs or something like that.
Yeah, and I agree, and especially when you take into the fact that, well, in Harvey Elliott's last 43 appearances for Liverpool, he's only started 16 of them, but has 7 goals and 12 assists, which averages to a goal involvement every 97 minutes, which, well, that simply isn't good enough. He should be starting with numbers like that, shouldn't he?
100%. He should be playing more.
Yeah.
There was a period in the season, and it was only going back over the sort of past 2-3 months, where people were going, Slot, what's happening with Elliott? He's not featuring. And yes, he had that bad game against Plymouth, but no one was good that day. In and around that, he's barely kicked a ball, and we'll touch upon Chiesa later, but he's barely kicked a football this season. Comes on against Newcastle and looks really bright and sharp and scores. Exactly.
Same with Harvey Elliott against PSG as well. You can clearly see they've turned up in big moments.
100%.
So I don't understand why they're not starting more, because they should be.
But as we alluded to earlier on, there are other issues at Liverpool at the minute. It's not just the fatigue midfield as to why we're doing bad. And one of those issues, in my opinion, is the over-reliance on Virgil van Dijk and Mohamed Salah. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I completely agree. If you look at the numbers, Liverpool scored 107 goals this season.
Not a bad tally.
No, it is a great return. But Mohamed Salah has contributed to exactly half of them, recording 54 goals and assists, which is remarkable, isn't it?
Well, remarkable from him, but
of course, yeah.
The other lads...
Yeah, they certainly leave a lot to be desired, because Gakpo's contributed to 21, which isn't too bad.
Not too bad.
Diaz 17, then Núñez 12, Jota 11, and then Chiesa 3. Yeah, literally. And Chiesa's got 3. He's contributed to 3 goals all season, which is nuts, isn't it? But just to be clear, though, I do rate Gakpo. I think he is a quality player.
I think he's the best out of the bunch by a considerable margin.
I completely agree, and the numbers clearly prove that as well. But the over-reliance on Mohamed Salah still stands, because, I mean, these numbers are ridiculous. And I know title teams in the past have had their main man.
Yes.
Because you've got your Chelsea's of Hazard, or Henry of Arsenal, or even more recently, Erling Haaland with Man City.
100%.
But I don't think even they've contributed to a team's goal tally to this extent.
No,
I mean, to contribute to half of Liverpool's goals from Mohamed Salah is absolutely nuts.
But also, it's not just Salah, as we alluded to, it's Virgil van Dijk as well. He just is imperious at the back.
He's an immense centre-back right now,
He's by far and away the best defender in the world.
Yeah.
And it's the same situation with Salah. When you're the best in your position, you're going to be head and shoulders the best of your club.
Yeah.
But then when you look around Van Dijk, it's just not up to scratch. Robertson, very inconsistent this season. Tsimikas, very inconsistent this season, not too great. Konate, picking up injuries. Quansah, he's naive. He's not really ready to play week in, week out in the Premier League. Gomez, good in patches, but has been injured for a chunk of it. And even so, he's always a liability. And Trent, he isn't a bad defender as people make him out to be, but he certainly isn't a great one, and he does get caught at times. I don't think 2 players in 2 respective positions have so much weight on how their team performs in games.
Yeah, I mean, it highlights 2 things. Obviously, you know, Liverpool should be better, but also it highlights how good Mohamed Salah and Van Dijk are, because they're both...
Yeah, don't take away from how good they've been performing.
Because they're both 2 of the best players in their position by an absolute, mile.
Also, I think when you look at other teams that have won the title over the years, they've had maybe 4 or 5 players who you look at and go, you're all-timers. Whereas in this Liverpool team, I think Alisson's obviously been injured for half the season, not his fault, but he wouldn't be remembered this campaign for much apart from the PSG game.
Yeah.
Trent hasn't really been up to scratch. The midfield's been good, but not all-timer good. It's just Salah and Van Dijk that you'd look at. Whereas the title-winning team under Klopp, Mane, Firmino, Salah, exceptional. Van Dijk, Trent was so good that season. Alisson, Robertson, Fabinho.
Yeah.
Henderson was remarkable. I think you'd look at it with sort of more admiration than you would with this current team.
I'd say we've covered most of the issues, but I do
agree.
think there is one more that is worth a mention, and that is the mistakes that we have seen from Arne Slot.
In fact, he brought on Chiesa and Elliott very late on, and I know that may seem easy to say, but just bring them on earlier. They came on in, I think, the late 70s, maybe even the early 80s, and I just don't understand.
And it's not like you were playing well before that,
No.
and it's not like things were going well. It was just sort of the same throughout the game.
Yeah.
Newcastle
and we left them on.
chances.
We left to bring them on so late. I just don't understand it. Like Chiesa and Elliott, maybe they haven't been brilliant at times this season, but I think they have shown enough this campaign to be given more of a chance.
Yeah.
Even looking back to previous matches, Elliott came on super late against PSG. Chiesa, he barely features. Give these players more of a chance.
Yeah.
Jota, Diaz, Nunes have not performed great this season, yet these players behind them aren't given the opportunity. It's different when you have Salah, Firmino, Mane, because they're all so good, and you can make a justification as to why these players weren't playing. But when your main attackers aren't performing, or your main midfielders because they're fatigued, bring on these players earlier.
Yeah.
Squad rotation is key, and players like Elliott and Chiesa should have been utilised far more this season.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly a lack of trust there, which is very strange from Slot, but I don't see why, because as we mentioned multiple times, when they have come on, they have turned up, haven't they? They've certainly turned up.
It's like Endo, for example. At the start of the campaign, I don't think he kicked a ball for like 3 months. That's what it felt like. Whereas now we're starting to see Slot utilise him a lot more, bring him on late to see out games and give Gravenberch a rest.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that Endo not playing earlier on in the season and not coming off the bench for Gravenberch has contributed to the fatigue of the Dutchman. Diaz playing up front. Yes, he had a great game against Leverkusen because it sort of confused the back line.
Yeah.
But then it hasn't really worked from then. And I know Jota's been injured and Nunes has been injured at points, but I liked against City when he played Jones, Szoboszlai, Diaz on the left, Salah on the right. I like that system. I like the idea of Szoboszlai almost playing as a 9, Jones sort of rotating with him. That 4-4-2 press was very efficient, very effective, and we circulated the ball well, and we looked, well, a potent in front of goal.
And even at
we
Leipzig,
don't always look with Jota and Nunes, and they're actual strikers.
And even at Leipzig, by the way, Szoboszlai did play quite high up the pitch, so it's not like he's unfamiliar with that position, and it's just one good game, and that's it. I'm convinced that if we did see him there more often, he would certainly put in some good performances.
I think our best team is potentially Gakpo on the left, Salah on the right, and Jones and Szoboszlai almost playing one as the 9, one as the 10, and rotating.
Yeah.
And that, well, obviously does show that we do need to improve our strike force, but I don't know why Slot doesn't utilise that more often and had, well, sort of this sort of persistent mindset of let's play Diaz through the middle because of that one good game.
Yeah.
It worked that game, but it's not going to work every game, and he should have changed it sooner.
I agree.
And I know these issues are very little, but at the same time, it has contributed to games this season where we should have really won or should have been more effective. But we just haven't, because I think Slot really either hasn't played the right tactics or picked the right personnel.
But Zach, to conclude, what areas do you think Liverpool need to address this summer to be able to compete again next season?
Well, first and foremost, we definitely need to get Salah and Van Dijk down to new deals, because although they're going to leave the club eventually, and they are aging, so you're going to have to look at replacing them at some point. They're just too good to lose in one window.
And we've clearly highlighted that, haven't we?
Literally. You've got to replace 54 goal contributions and the best defender on the planet.
Exactly.
Yes, they may be into their 30s, but just sign them on a 2-year deal. Just keep them at the club. Even if they're not quite as good next season as they are this season, that's still better than 90% of the defenders and the attackers in world football.
I agree.
So sign them on. And I didn't include Trent in that conversation because I do think he's going to leave. But if we can keep Trent around...
I mean, it's a bonus, certainly a bonus, isn't it?
So be it. 100%. But in terms of who we should sign, at number 9, that goes without saying, I think. Jota, he's too injury prone now, and even when he plays, he's not affecting games like he used to.
You can't rely upon him, can you?
No, you can't rely upon him. And then you look at his teammate up top, who plays in the same position, Darwin Núñez, who just...
He cannot finish for his life, can he?
He can't eat a barn door with a handful of rice. He just isn't good enough.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not even like you can say, like with Firmino, who wasn't the most clinical, oh, he offers brilliant ball control, he offers brilliant link-up play.
He certainly doesn't do that.
Núñez just isn't good enough.
His all-round game is just severely not good enough at the moment, is it?
Not at all. He's far too one-dimensional, and that one-dimensional component, which I think is making a run through on goal and finishing it, doesn't happen. No, doesn't happen frequently enough. So a striker, and a world-class striker or a borderline world-class striker, I think is needed, especially if we lose Salah 100%, because someone's got to score some goals in this team. But even if we keep Salah, I think we need someone of that real quality, like an Isak, or maybe even the Julian Alvarez, to support him up top. Left wing, I'm happy with Luis Diaz and Cody Gakpo competing with each other. Don't get me wrong, out of Nunes, Jota and Diaz, I'd get rid of 2 of them.
Yeah.
But I think Luis Diaz I'd keep at the 3 just for the fact that...
And I would agree with that.
He can sort of add that competition to Gakpo. Gakpo's your starting left winger, but if Gakpo's injured, you've got Diaz, who's a decent player. And plus the fact they can compete with each other, it adds that rivalry.
Yeah.
Moving away from the strike force though, I think we need a number 6 because Gravenberch, as good as he isn't a natural number 6. I think we need someone who maybe comprises the best elements of Endo, which is the ball winning ability, the tenacity, and sort of the positional sense.
Yeah.
And the player who can, well, progress the ball like Gravenberch, maybe like a Zubamendi. I know maybe it's not the most feasible option, but a player who's a controller and who can win the ball back.
Yeah, someone of that, like that sort of kind of role.
Profile.
Yeah, that profile. That's
100%. I don't think it's maybe an absolute must in terms of like it is with the striker, but I do think that's a position that we could address.
Yeah, I agree.
Left back, 100%. I think Tsimikas will go this summer, and although Robertson's been good patches, he has looked shaky.
I think
this
his
season.
legs are starting to go a little bit now, Robertson, and I do
He's
think...
played at the top level for what, 7 years now at Liverpool? Pretty much 30, 40, 50 games every season.
And I
it's
think,
going to wane.
I agree, and I think you need energy on that left-hand side. And I've seen, obviously, you've been linked with Hato from Ajax.
Okay.
From seeing him a little bit, he certainly provides that. He's very quick, and even if it's not him, I think you need someone of that profile just to add more energy. Because, like I said, I think Robertson's legs are going, and Tsimikas isn't quite hitting those levels at the moment.
No, Tsimikas is a good backup, but he's not starting quality, and that's where you move Robertson to backup. Maybe sign someone like Hato, who can also play centre back, as maybe sort of a defensive-minded left back, or you could sign someone like Milos Kerkez, who is like the Robertson we saw at Hull, probably even better. He's got that end product. He's got so much energy. He literally is like a Duracell battery. He runs up right like this down the flank. I'd love to see that again. It'd be like the Robertson of old. Centre back as well. That's something that we need to address because with or without Virgil van Dijk in the squad, whether he leaves this summer or not, we definitely need to address that position. So I think we should sign a very good quality centre back, maybe Dean Housel or Zabani. Sorry, Bournemouth. I don't want to rob all your players, but you have got some real gems there. Or someone of that profile, maybe even 2. And it just adds and just bolsters the back line. And potentially one of those players, if we signed a Dean Howson, could be Van Dijk's replacement. Because I think Dean Howson has got a lot of good qualities.
He is quality, isn't he?
And then with right back, it sounds like we're going to replace the whole back line. But with right back, I think it all depends on if Trent leaves.
And I think we know that Trent is very likely to leave. So I think that is probably, if you ask Liverpool what one of their main positions to address this summer, I would think that they'd probably say right back.
Yeah, because
I think
you can't lose a player of that quality and not replace him. Don't get me wrong, Bradley, fantastic player, but he's picking up a lot of injuries and that worries me. And you've got to have competition there too.
Of course, yeah.
So maybe you just sign a proper right back who's maybe up and down the flank, a bit like Bradley's at the moment, and you rotate and you let them compete.
Yeah.
Or maybe you sign a more defensively secure right back, like maybe a Hato on the left, but obviously a like-for-like player on the right.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Maybe you have Kerkers on the left and a more defensive one on the right.
Yeah.
Or you could have Hato on the left and then have Bradley and another attacking fullback on the right compete.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like a lot of words, a lot of mumbo-jumbo,
it gives a lot
of good balance.
It gives a lot of options for Arnie Slot as well, and depending on the situation of the game, if you have something like that, I mean, it's perfect. It's sort of a manager's dream because you can be very tactically flexible with that, can't you?
You can adapt to different situations.
Yeah.
But if I was going to maybe whittle it down to maybe 4 signings, I'd say a striker.
Yeah.
I'd say a centre back. I'd say a left back, and I'd probably say a right back just because I think Trent's going to go.
Yeah.
But if Salah goes, you look at a right winger.
Yeah.
If anyone else goes, you look at that position, a left winger. If Luis Diaz goes, you look at a left winger. But yeah, I'd say centre back, striker for sure, left back for sure, and then one of those 2 positions, whether that be right back or right wing. And the fact that Liverpool haven't spent big since the summer of 2023, that's 4 windows now without some household signings. Yeah, I think we'll be saving up a lot of money to spend big this window. Plus the fact if you offload Nunes or Diaz or Jota or Tsimikas, you're going to make 150 million.
Of course, yeah.
And winning the title generates more money as well. You push that towards
and
signings.
your wage bill's freed up, especially also if Trent goes as well. I mean, you've got plenty to spend, haven't you?
There's no excuse if we don't spend at least 200 million this summer on 4 real quality assets to take this team to the next level and, well, see what phase 2 of Arnie Slot could be. Because phase 1 with Jurgen Klopp's team has been pretty good so far.
And I think it's important.
The issues.
I think it's important as well because we've clearly seen the quality of the Premier League this season hasn't been sort of top level, which is...
No, maybe not from the top clubs.
I'm not saying Liverpool have been bad, of course. Liverpool have been absolutely fantastic. You've been great. I'm not denying that at all. But I think we can all agree that obviously Arsenal had that injury crisis and the quality isn't up to scratch. And we already know that Arsenal should improve, but more importantly, Man City will be back in there.
If we had the City and Arsenal over the last few seasons playing this season, I don't think Liverpool would be top of the league.
Yeah.
I know maybe points tally would say otherwise, but I think come the end of the campaign, I think the Overreliance on Salah and Van Dijk, the fatigue midfield would wane. And yeah, this Liverpool team will win the league and everyone will go, it was a good team, a very good team. They won't be remembered in the Hall of Fame like Klopp's title winning team, City's Centurions, City's treble winners, Arsenal's Invincibles, because I do think we're far too reliant on a few individuals.